entitled Vegan Roommate Steals Food and Acts Like She is the Victim. I'm a 21-year-old male in my second year of university, currently rooming with 3 other people. Dan, 20 male, Max, 19 male, and Olivia, 20 female. All names are fake. We share a living area, kitchen, and of course a fridge. Each of us has a shelf for our stuff, and we share the rest of the fridge space. In our group, I'm the only one without dietary requirements. Dan is gluten intolerant, Olivia is vegan by choice, and Max is mostly vegetarian due to a mix of allergies and medical conditions. Max and I are in the same major and are close. When we first moved in, Max noticed that some of his food kept getting moved to Olivia's shelf. Max has severe social anxiety and struggles with conflict, so he asked me to talk to Olivia about it. When I did, she said she thought we had gotten the food for her because she's vegan. I explained that Max is a vegetarian. I didn't mention his medical conditions, as I felt it wasn't my place to share. She apologized, moved his food back, and seemed happy to have someone else who understood. For the next few weeks, everything was fine. Olivia did get a bit pushy with Max at times, saying that meat is the hard part and how easy it would be to stop eating milk, eggs, and so on. Yesterday, we all decided to order takeout and got Chinese. There's a beef-based dish that Max can eat, and it's his favorite, so we got a portion for the group as well as one just for Max. We sat down to eat, and when Olivia saw Max eating the dish, she went to get some. Max quickly stopped her and told her it had beef in it. She sat there, blinked a few times, and asked why he was eating it. Max sheepishly replied that he can eat this dish. Olivia started yelling that he can't make exceptions to veganism and vegetarianism whenever he feels like it. Max explained that he's vegetarian for medical reasons. Olivia told him he shouldn't call himself a vegetarian then, quickly filled her plate, and went to her room. Today, Olivia refused to talk to anyone and would leave the room if Max came in. Max was clearly upset. I asked Dan to take him out somewhere while I talked to Olivia, as I couldn't promise she wouldn't yell again. They left, and I knocked on Olivia's door and asked to talk. She let me in, and I told her that the way she's been treating Max isn't okay. She said she felt lied to, as she thought she had someone who cared about the same thing she did. I told her it's okay to feel that way, but it's not Max's fault, and what she's doing is wrong. She yelled at me, saying it was Max's fault for misappropriating the label vegetarian, and started comparing it to being hate crimed. I shut that down right away. She's the only one in the group who doesn't belong to a minority, so this did piss me off, and left to join Dan and Max, who had gone to the arcade. When we maxed Dan, and I got back, the place was a mess. Max's stuff had been thrown into the living area, including some of his gaming equipment and medical supplies which were damaged. Any meat product had been opened and thrown in the trash, and empty milk cartons were in the sink, which had been full, so I think she poured them out. Her shelf in the fridge was empty, and anything vegan-friendly. Most of Max's food, and some of Dan's, was gone. There were 2 rooms on one side, and 2 on the other, and Olivia's and Max's rooms were next to each other. We called our resident advisor, who was really nice and calm, probably because Max was crying at this point. She said she would talk to Olivia and would likely have her moved, because this wasn't appropriate. We're hoping she gets moved. She hasn't been back yet today. We just finished moving Max's stuff into Dan's room and setting up a fusion just in case. We did our food shop a few days ago, so we don't have enough money to replace anything. Anyway, sorry, this was a bit of a rant. Update. First, thank you for all the advice you gave. Unfortunately, we had cleaned up the mess without taking pictures, but we took photos of the damage, and the RA is kind of a witness since she saw the mess and damage before we touched it. Olivia tried to come back, but with help from the RA we prevented her. We told her that unless she replaces everything, we're going to file a police report. She broke down, saying she didn't want us to call the police but couldn't buy animal products because it was against her vegan beliefs. After crying and yelling, she agreed to transfer money to cover the food and damaged items. It came to a few thousand. Luckily, healthcare, while not great, isn't overly expensive here. She reluctantly handed over the key to her room, and the RA recorded us while we packed her stuff. We found a mini fridge that had all the missing food. She was then let in to get her stuff and took extra long, sulking and trying to make us feel bad. When that didn't work, she started getting aggressive and yelling, throwing slurs. Dan, Max, and the RA got campus security to remove her. As some of you predicted, she did try to pull the big scary men bullying her for being vegan card, but that doesn't really hold up when these big scary men are either dance majors Dan 5'5" and built like a stick me, or a 5'3" trans guy with severe anxiety whose stomach will implode if he eats meat Max. And that's not what actually happens, just what he says it feels like. Thanks again for all the comments, advice, and even offers to give money. Someone mentioned a student food bank, and they said that since the medical stuff takes priority, we can access the student food bank if we don't have enough. Regarding the few comments asking about Max's health conditions, I asked, but Max isn't comfortable with me sharing them here, even anonymously. I hope the curious few understand. While not suspended, Olivia is now banned from all on-campus housing and student halls. Thanks again for all the kind words. Fingers crossed for our new roommate. I'm trying to be less judgmental with my opinions now. It's a flaw. I'm working on it. So, my take on this one is pretty simple. I really don't care if you're vegan, keto, or whatever else. Nobody has the right to throw away other people's food, especially when it's stuff they paid for. Olivia's behavior was completely out of line. She took her personal beliefs way too far, disrespecting boundaries, destroying property, and stealing food while playing the victim. Max didn't owe her an explanation for his dietary needs, and her entitlement doesn't justify her wrecking everyone's stuff. If you can't respect roommates' boundaries, maybe you shouldn't have roommates. They seem to have handled it quite well. I'm also pretty confused about how the school housing allows such co-ed arrangements. Does this happen often? Entitled stepmother got herself banned from my wedding. Trigger warning. Mention of child abuse. It's not too graphic, but it's there. I tried posting this on AITA through a different account a couple of days ago, but it didn't work out. Given the trigger warning, I'm not surprised. I've since concluded that my wife and I did the right thing, so this will be my last attempt to post this story. I tried to add some information and change the wording slightly. All names are fake. I'm a 28-year-old male, and my stepmother, 49 female, is a wannabe party planner. She has taken it upon herself to plan and host every party and holiday my dad's family has thrown since she married him. I never loved those occasions growing up. She's controlling and gets upset if people complain about anything. But I humored her for my dad's sake. According to him, this helps her feel included. I'm getting married to my fiancée, Jane, 26 female, in July. We got engaged in early 2021. But Jane ended up getting pregnant a couple of months after that, and we decided to postpone the wedding to focus on our son for a while. So we've had a long engagement. My stepmother has tried to hijack our wedding plans from day one. Complaining, contacting our planner, showing up unannounced to Jane's dress appointments, etc. And we have repeatedly asked her to stop. Dad wants us to humor her, but she's clearly resentful of the fact that she's not hosting the wedding or being labeled mother of the groom in invitations. Besides our baby boy, we also have Luke, 4 Jane's paternal half-brother. She got custody of him a few months into our relationship after his parents died. I ended up moving in with them during the pandemic and have been in Luke's life since he was a baby. He doesn't call me dad and refers to us as his sister and his Opie, but we love him like a son. Stepmother, though, hates Luke. She accuses Jane of baby trapping her way into the family. That accusation only got worse after our son was born. My dad gets along with Jane and adores the kids, but stepmother demands that he refuse to babysit Luke, so we don't leave the kids with them often. Instead, Jane's brother and sister-in-law usually watch the kids for us, as their children are close to ours in age. We had an event last Sunday, and my brother-in-law was out of town with his family. Jane's other siblings live in different cities, as do my mom and sister. My dad agreed to babysit at our place, and we left. We came back to find both kids crying, stepmother screaming, and Dad weakly trying to calm everyone down. Apparently, Luke had told stepmother that both he and our son were going to be our ring bearers, and she went ballistic. She screamed that she wasn't going to allow that because he wasn't family. She then made me need to include the trigger warning when he started crying. His lip is still split. She'd never gotten to this point before. We immediately banned her from our house and from our wedding. Dad is fuming and has said he's not going without her. He's also convinced half of his side of the family by severely downplaying what stepmother did to boycott the wedding as well. This includes my stepbrother, who fully agrees with his mother, no matter how many times I try to tell him the truth. Jane and I are refusing to budge, but many of my cousins who aren't coming anymore are asking us to reconsider. Pretty much all of Jane's family agrees with us, but one of her aunts has suggested that maybe stepmother is acting out because she doesn't feel welcomed by my family. I've honestly had it with my family enabling her behavior. I love my dad and really want him at my wedding, but I am more than willing to go no contact if it means protecting my family. Edit. I think I accidentally deleted the paragraph where I mentioned this, but we did press charges. We took Luke to the pediatrician the next day and gathered every piece of evidence we had. Not only did we have pictures of Luke's face, but by some miraculous stroke of luck, we also had nanny cam footage. Some commenters were right to assume that my stepmother hadn't been invited to our house, but my dad hasn't really gone anywhere without her in years, so we took precautions. We didn't expect her to do anything this awful, but we've never trusted her with the kids. The physical attack happened off camera, but there is some footage of her screaming and Luke crying before, and after the event she now has a child abuse charge on her record. We wouldn't let her get away with this. Edit 2. There is a lot of additional information I want to add. I'll try to respond to at least some of the comments. I did not expect the amount I've gotten so far, but all I'll add for now is that Luke is okay. The visit to the pediatrician happened the day after. He already had a counselor. Jane was pretty traumatized when her dad and stepmom died and was worried it would rub off on him and will continue treatment. We've been hugging and pampering him a little more than usual too. He's still upset, but is already doing much better. I want to thank everybody who took the time to read and or comment on my previous post. It's been a tough week, but it's always great to know that people care. I haven't been able to reply to every comment, but I will try to address some in this update. This might get a little long. I'll start by saying that Jane and I are going no contact with my dad and stepmother. We haven't really spoken to either of them since the incident, and I don't plan on being the one to reach out. Any communication between us is being handled by my younger sister. She's completely on our side, but will remain in low contact for the time being. I've decided to adopt Jane's way of dealing with people she cares about, forgive what's apologized for, but never forget. Basically, if dad or stepmother ever truly understand what they did wrong and sincerely apologize, we're willing to forgive them, even if begrudgingly so. But we will never ignore or let them forget what they did to our family. For the time being, neither of them will be allowed near Luke, our baby, or any other kids we may have in the future, even if we do forgive them. As for the rest of my family, I read a lot of comments suggesting that I post pictures of Luke's face, as well as the nanny cam footage. I'm not very active on social media, but even if I was, I'm not comfortable exposing my injured preschooler like that, especially given that nothing on the internet ever truly goes away. I also decided not to share the pictures with my family unless truly necessary. I should probably mention that while my family adores my dad, most of them aren't very fond of stepmother. She had 2 failed marriages prior to meeting my father, the first of which resulted in my stepbrother, and he cheated on his then girlfriend to be with her. My family loved that girlfriend and disliked stepmother right away. Not only has she been controlling and manipulative since the beginning, but she's also tried to force her way into the family matriarch role, by any means possible, taking over planning duties for every family event was her favorite way to do it, because of all the attention and compliments that come with it. The main reason I hated these parties growing up was because she'd always find a way to make everything about her, including Christmas and my sister's birthdays. The rest of the family felt neutral about it, but they never liked her. With Luke, it was different. Most of my relatives didn't meet him until COVID restrictions got looser, and by then he was 2 years old. He's a bright and genuinely lovable kid, and there weren't really any other small children in the family, so everyone immediately started cooing over him. The way I see it, stepmother got upset that Jane and Luke were accepted by my family so easily compared to her experience, and that's why she resents them both, but I can't confirm that. She was also mad that, aside from not being the planner, she would have absolutely no involvement in the wedding party. She tried to pressure us into letting her officiate. One of Jane's best friends was offered that role a year ago, making my stepbrother my best man. He wasn't interested, and I'd already chosen my best friend, or asking her sister's daughter, to be our flower girl. We'd promised Jane's 3-year-old niece. Also, her sister's daughter is 15, and doesn't know us. She also tried to convince us to let my dad walk Jane down the aisle since her father's gone, but her eldest brother, the brother-in-law I mentioned in the first post, had already been enlisted. Stepmother was disappointed that my family wasn't as involved in the wedding as Jane's, and kept making comments about how that would never happen if we put her in charge. All of that being said, there is nothing that can excuse being that awful to a child, especially if it really is the petty jealousy that I suspect. Because I haven't spoken with my father, my sister has been keeping me updated on what he's been up to. As I found out through her, the story my dad and stepmother told the rest of the family completely erases Luke's injury and the abuse charges. It insinuates that Jane and I banned them because we got annoyed with stepmother and decided to take it out on my dad as well. Because most people already disliked stepmother, explaining what actually happened that night wasn't hard, and most of the relatives that I actually wanted at the wedding have apologized and are berating my dad as well. The people who didn't believe us, as well as those saying we overreacted, have been told they are not welcome in our home anymore. Those are mostly people from my dad's generation, so I can't say I'm surprised. But the realization that they are so biased they're willing to protect a woman they hate after she hurt a child just to make my dad happy has reassured me that I don't need any of them in my life. My stepbrother is still in denial. He refuses to believe his mother could hurt a child even with all the evidence we have. I have to admit I understand I love my mum too, but that doesn't mean I'd excuse his obliviousness. So he's banned too. It sucks because we were close growing up, but I don't regret it. Besides, Jane has 3 other siblings besides Luke, the older brother-in-law, a twin brother, and a younger sister, and I am closer to them than I ever was to him. Speaking of Jane's family, they're all furious over what happened and have been extremely supportive of us. Jane's maternal family basically adopted Luke after she got custody of him and have called frequently to make sure he's okay. We did manage to save some money with everybody we uninvited and have decided to use it to help Jane's cousin. She lives in a different country and was previously unable to come to the wedding, so we're paying for her plane ticket. Luke has gotten much better and is almost completely back to being the sunny child he's always been. The split lip was shallow. It's healing slowly, but it didn't require any stitches. We sat him down a few days ago and explained that my dad and stepmother wouldn't be around anymore. He really liked my dad, but understands that he and stepmother are attached at the hip. He's clearly scared of her, but we're doing our best to make him feel safe. Jane and I have reassured him that he is family. We love him, and no one will ever change that. I'm not too worried about dad or stepmother trying to show up at the wedding, but we've alerted the venue and given them pictures just in case they try anything. Better safe than sorry. Some people brought attention to the fact that stepmother is a hypocrite for saying Luke isn't family. I agree for obvious reasons. Her main excuse for pretty much everything she does is that she doesn't feel like my family welcomes her. Dad has been guilting me to take part in everything she plans by reminding us of that for as long as I can remember. The way he continues to make excuses for her without realizing this is basically a case of the pot calling the kettle black. Except Luke actually is family, is what has made me accept that, while I will always love my dad, it's not healthy or safe for me and my family to be around him anymore. It hurts to know my son won't have his only remaining biological grandfather in his life, but he has 2 amazing step-grandpas to make up for it. For now, I'm sad but satisfied with how things have turned out. I don't like to complain about my life. It's a mess, but a beautiful one. I love my fiancé, I love my kids, and I'm lucky enough to love my job. We're happy. I'm not letting anyone ruin that. To whoever was annoyed at my censorship, when posting on AITA didn't work out, Jane suggested I make the writing less explicit. I'm not used to Reddit yet, so I might have overdone it a little bit. I hope this is my last update on this story, but I'll keep you posted. Again, thank you for all your love and support. Best wishes to all of you. I'll start by probably disappointing a lot of people. We're coming to terms with the fact that it's unlikely stepmother will get anything more than a slap on the wrist. Jane and I are discussing our next move with our lawyer, but we're still not sure how we're going to move forward. It's too early to tell anyway, so we're trying not to get ahead of ourselves any more than we already have. However, I'm relieved to announce that we're getting started on the process for a restraining order against stepmother. We're using the same evidence we gathered the week following the incident, including the nanny cam footage and pictures of Luke, and we'll focus on that for the time being. I still haven't spoken to my father. My sister is still in low contact, but is seriously considering cutting ties with him. Because my sister is the only one on my side who still talks to him, my father keeps trying to ask her about me and whether I've calmed down yet. According to her, he's annoyed that half of his family refuses to talk to him, but still doesn't seem to accept why. I told my sister that she doesn't need to keep playing messenger pigeon between me and our father. I never asked her to do it, and it's clearly taking a toll on her. But she insists she'll stop when it feels right. By the way, there is absolutely no doubt that stepmother attacked Luke. Not only did Luke say at the moment we got home, but that was also confirmed by my father in a failed attempt to defend her behavior. He never tried to hide it from us. That, and the fact that he gave Luke an ice bag, is literally the only positive thing I can say about his actions. and stepmother was too busy screaming about how much of a whining brat Luke was being to deny it. To those who guess stepmother is younger than my dad, you get an invisible cookie. She's also 5 years younger than his previous girlfriend. They got together when I was around 15. Also, my stepbrother is only a month older than me. She turns 50 later this year. Had him at 21. Married his father a year later. Both our kids are doing mostly okay. Luke's back to running around the house in his Superman costume whenever he doesn't have anything better to do. He did have a few nightmares this past week and has asked to sleep in our bed twice. We don't mention my father around him, and he's still seeing his counselor. Our 14-month-old son has learned 2 new words, hi and bye, and Luke is trying to teach him to say his name. Jane's sister, who moved away for college, is coming over for a couple of days to celebrate her 21st birthday later this month. Luke's excited to see her, and Jane's excited to get drunk with her. Can't say I blame her. We're hoping her presence will cheer us all up. I'm not doing so good, and neither is Jane. She's usually the kind of person who tries to keep her negative emotions to herself, but she cried herself to sleep almost every night the week it happened. It breaks my heart to see her like that, and I can't help but feel like this is my fault. There's a part of me trying to tell me I had no way of knowing stepmother would do anything like that, but that doesn't really change anything. I allowed my father near my kids unsupervised, even though I knew she'd probably tag along. This is the guiltiest I've ever felt, and I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. Jane has been improving lately, and is trying to convince me to see a therapist. I've never really done that before apart from a psychiatrist when I was younger, but now feels like a good time to give it a try. I was surprised by a few messages this week from people telling me to forgive my father and stepmother, as well as re-invite them to the wedding. That's not happening. In fact, I'm not willing to ever forgive stepmother. My dad has now degraded to a huge maybe, but I will never understand or forget what she did. Also, though the wedding is the last thing on our minds right now. We're not postponing it, we considered rescheduling, but the date we'd settled on is pretty much the only one that works for our guests. We have passwords with all our vendors, and gave them all clear instructions not to talk to anyone, but us Jane's family is bigger and closer to each other, which is why they're more involved in the wedding than mine, but I do have family participating. My sister is one of the bridesmaids, 2 of my cousins are groomsmen, and my mom is walking down the aisle with the wedding party. Going through all of this with Jane has made me understand even more just how much I love this woman. I couldn't ask for a better partner to start a family with, and I have no idea what I'd do without her. This didn't tear us apart, and I couldn't be more thankful. I probably won't make any more updates until after the wedding, unless something big happens. In the meantime, as always, best wishes to all of you. Update 3. 15 days after second update. I didn't plan on updating again before the wedding, but something pretty huge happened. The good news is we got the restraining order. The bad news is that Jane and I had to see both stepmother and my father at the court hearing. This was our first time seeing them since we kicked them out of our house over a month ago, and neither of us were looking forward to it. We left the kids with Jane's brother and sister-in-law, so at least Luke didn't have to see them. The hearing itself went a lot quicker than I expected. I'll give credit where it's due. My father was, at the very least, smart enough to understand there was no way they were winning this. There was a lot of evidence against them. Not only did we have the nanny cam footage and Luke's pictures and medical record, but my sister had also gathered every text and email stepmother had sent her and the family about what happened. And stepmother hates speaking on the phone, so there were a lot of those. They didn't even bother to get an attorney for the hearing. The judge granted us a protection order against stepmother. She's not allowed within 500 feet of us or our property anymore. We're changing all our locks this week, and I'm thinking about changing my phone number as well. I have to admit, the moment we left the courthouse was the safest I'd felt since this whole ordeal started. Jane was close to tearing up with joy when we got to the car. We picked up the kids and went to McDonald's with my brother-in-law and his family to celebrate. Hours later, my father called me. The order doesn't extend to him, so he can still do that. Jane and the kids were in bed, so I answered. I didn't expect him to change his mind and apologize all of a sudden, but decided to give him one last chance. He tried to start some awkward small talk, but I told him to get to the point. He asked me if the order was truly necessary. I stated very clearly that stepmother was never coming near Jane or my children again, and that I was glad I had a restraining order to formalize that. Every excuse he had for stepmother was pretty easy to shut down. But she only hit him once. Yep, and that's enough for me. The kids need their grandma. She's not their grandma. Mom is. She's my wife. You need to respect her. She attacked Luke. She disrespected my family in my own house. I don't owe her anything, least of all my respect. He then went on a rant about family, how much of a godsend stepmother was, and everything she'd done for me and my sister since she came into our lives. I replied by listing every time I could remember her lying, overstepping a boundary, or acting unhinged around me, my family, or my sister. I brought up both my adult life and my youth. Examples included her attempts to hijack most of our milestones, recently our wedding plans, our son's birth, Jane's baby shower, and my sister's college graduation, her obsession with the idea of a perfect family, and her disgusting attitude toward Luke. I also made sure to mention her habits of going through my and my sister's stuff when we were younger. It's trivial compared to everything else, but this behavior went on until my sister moved out of their house only 3 months ago. We're pretty sure she found out about Jane's wedding dress appointments by reading my sister's planner while she wasn't home, for instance. Some of the memories I mentioned are long and hard to explain, but they did cement the fact that stepmother means nothing to me. He tried to go with the whole she doesn't feel included excuse again, but I shut him up. I said he'd had the opportunity to protect his grandchildren, but had chosen his monster of a wife instead, and that's enough for me to want nothing to do with him. I hung up without saying goodbye. My sister told me he called her afterward, and she told him she was going no contact with him as well. I think we're both starting to accept that our father won't change. It sucks, but he's made his priorities clear, and his children and grandkids aren't among them. For now, that's it. Now that they're fresh in my mind, I'm thinking about sharing some of the stories I reminded my father of, but that's going to take a while. Until then, as always, best wishes to all of you. After being engaged for over 2 years, Jane and I finally got married last Saturday. We're still getting used to calling each other husband and wife, but we'll get there. Hopefully. The wedding was awesome. The kids had fun, our extended families finally met, and we danced so much I could barely stand the next day. Luke took his ring-bearer duties seriously and held my son's hand as they walked down the aisle. Besides my aunt getting shit-faced and being let out in a wheelchair, which I already thought would happen anyway, everything went according to plan. It's been 4 months since we got the restraining order against stepmother. Things have been mostly quiet, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Except completely quiet, but we can't always get what we want. I never really worried about stepmother showing up at the wedding, especially after the restraining order. It's literally illegal for her to come close to us, and we made it very clear that if she tried, we'd call the cops right away. My friends still warned me to take safety measures, most of which I did. Stepmother didn't show up, of course, but I'm a strong believer that any money spent on security is well spent, so no regrets on that end. My stepbrother and I wished each other happy birthdays, and he also texted Jane on hers back in June. That's the only contact we've had during these months. He knows that the door is still open if he wants to apologize. My dad has given up on trying to reach me. We haven't spoken since April. He's still trying to talk to my sister, for some reason, but she's ignoring him. A few days after she went no contact with him, they had a huge fight over the phone about stepmother's treatment of us over the years. Insults were thrown, sore subjects were brought up, and most importantly, my father took stepmother's side on almost everything. My sister called me crying afterward. I wanted to call him and yell at him, but she told me not to. She's doing okay now. She hasn't blocked him, but doesn't take his calls or answer his texts. She's only gotten 3. A weak apology, one on my birthday back in May, and a long rant after neither of us wished him a happy Father's Day. After all, despite our differences, he's still our father. He's not wrong. I love my father, and I always will. But I can't be around him anymore. While I've closed that door, I'm not locking it just yet. He knows what he needs to do if he wants his family back. I don't think he'll do it, but if there's the slightest chance he might, I'll consider opening the door an inch or two. This is my wife's suggestion. I'm a lot less optimistic than she is, but maybe it's important to hold on to that hope. She hasn't forgiven him, though, or stepmother. Jane has always been very protective of Luke, so it was no surprise that this disaster shook her. A part of me was scared she'd blame me, but she called me a dumbass when I told her that. I've been in therapy for a few months, and it's helped a lot more than I thought it would. I've realized stepmother's behavior around me growing up was a lot worse than I always thought, and it's great to finally be able to get my feelings off my chest. Right now, I'm more than happy. I just married the most amazing woman ever. And I have the family I always dreamed of. None of us are perfect, but I never thought life would be this great to me. I'll stick around. Reddit is a lot more than I expected, but I can sleep peacefully now, so it's safe to say this will be my last update on this. Thank you all for the kindness and advice you gave me these months. I could have never expected the support I got from you guys, and I can't begin to describe how helpful it was. Seriously, thank you all. Edit. Okay, I updated too soon. I didn't want to write another post, so I'll just add this here. My stepbrother called me earlier today. Apparently, he and stepmother had a fight, and he wants to meet up. I agreed as long as it was just the two of us. We're meeting up for coffee on Wednesday. I have no idea what to expect, but even if he does apologize, I need to know he understands how and why he let us down. Final update. 5 months after 4th update. Hey guys, I've been away from Reddit for a few months due to some stuff at work, but a lot of people have been messaging me about my stepbrother, so I want to give you a small update. I've been busy and tired these days, so I might gloss over some details. Feel free to ask me anything. I first met my stepbrother for coffee back in August. He'd had a fight with stepmother, and the restraining order was brought up. She'd lied to him about some details, accusing Luke of picking on my baby, bad-mouthing Jane, and more, but this time he managed to force her to tell him the truth. My stepbrother started to reevaluate his relationship with his mother after talking to his therapist and his friends about it, as well as the way she'd raised him. He finally accepted I wasn't exaggerating about what she did to Luke. He wanted to talk to me back in June, but didn't want to distract Jane and me from the wedding. Jane and I spent the last 4 months working on rebuilding our relationship with my stepbrother. We've been meeting for coffee or lunch and discussing his mother and what she did to our lives and my kids. Jane started joining us in October, and the kids saw him again for the first time 2 weeks ago. Things were awkward between us for a while, but we're good now. He's also making amends with my sister. In early November, he completely cut contact with stepmother. Jane and the kids are doing amazing. Luke turned 5 in September, and our baby will be 2, holy crap, in early February. We're spending the holidays with Jane's family in Brazil, while my stepbrother stays with his girlfriend. Things are great. That's all. I'm signing off for now. I'll let you know if anything happens. Happy holidays, everyone. Best wishes to all of you. The stepmother's behavior was absolutely unacceptable. Hurting Luke and trying to control their wedding is just not okay. Weddings bring out the worst in entitled people, and this one here really shows it. There's a difference between wanting to be involved and completely hijacking the event. Opie and Jane did the right thing by banning her and getting that restraining order to protect their kids. It's tough that the dad's siding with her, but they're handling it well by focusing on the family's safety and their happiness. Because once you start attacking the bride's little brother and making everything about yourself, you stop being family and start being a problem. Honestly, their choices might seem harsh, but I guess that was the only way to protect their peace. Entitled, Sister Steals Cats and Nearly Kills Actual Sister. This story is somewhat complicated, so I'll try to make it as clear as possible. First off, I have no idea what this woman was even thinking, but apparently that's par for the Karen course. Cast: Petunia, half-sister on dad's side. Lily, older half-sister from mom's first marriage, and the only sister I was raised with. Parents: mom and dad. Me, the avocado. To start this story, you need some background. My father had a best friend whom he had known for years. The friend was sterile and asked Dad for a donation. Dad agreed under the condition that he not be involved because he was already with my mom and had my older sister Lily. The friend agreed, the donation happened, and Petunia was born. The friend died when Petunia was 4 months old. Petunia's mother remarried a very rich man, and all seemed well in the world. Fast forward 16 years, and Petunia found Dad on Facebook and demanded to see him. He was careful and tried to contact her mother, but got no response. He told Petunia that if she wanted to meet, her mother must approve it, and he set up a place to meet. Well, Petunia showed up with a bunch of bags, and Dad watched a car drive off. Petunia had lied, and her parents had dumped her on us for the summer. She spent the entire summer making Mom, Dad, me, and Lily miserable because we couldn't afford the things she was used to. Any attempt to call her mother was ignored because they were on vacation in Europe. Dad didn't want to call the police because he felt bad for Petunia. Petunia left, and we thought she'd stay away. Nope, she showed up 3 years later with a baby and tried to get Lily to babysit, saying, "You're the eldest, you're old enough to have kids of your own, so this will be like practice for you." Lily declined. She doesn't actually like children and said something along the lines of, The only babies I will ever care for are them, meaning her cats. Petunia refused to accept this and kept hounding us all to babysit because family. Lily flat out told her, "You're not my family. You're just my stepfather's daughter. You can't pull that card on me." I said no, and I mean it. We thought that was the end of it, because by now, no one wanted to babysit, which led to angry rants on Facebook about how we're ruining her life and keeping her from enjoying her youth because we're so selfish. Again, this was ignored, but not for long. 2 days ago, Petunia showed up at the house, claiming she wanted to talk to Dad. He was busy and no one else was home, so he told her to wait in the living room because he would only be gone a few minutes. Apparently, this was long enough for Petunia to grab Lily's cats and leave. Dad said he came back and was shocked she was gone, but shrugged it off. Mom and Lily came home an hour later, and when Dad mentioned the visit, they all thought it was weird. An hour later, I came home, and Lily was frantically looking for her cats. It was assumed they got out when Petunia came over. She let them out, and we were looking around the trees and calling for the fur balls. Lily was having a full-on panic attack, and Dad ended up calling an ambulance because she passed out. Lily has severe anxiety. Lily ended up in the hospital. Mom stayed with her, and Dad kept looking for the cats. I was keeping in contact with Mom via text, and she let me know Lily was being admitted for observation. Dad and I were frantic because we knew if we didn't find the cats, or worse, found them dead, Lily might go downhill. We were lucky, though, as not too long after we had just about given up hope, we got a call from my older brother. It turns out Petunia had taken the cats to the Humane Society, the same one he worked at, and was claiming the cats needed to be put down immediately. He didn't see Petunia turn them in, because he was in the back, but he recognized the fur balls and was able to get Dad to come down and claim ownership of the cats. Now Dad is working on filing a lawsuit and a police case for stolen property, and the harm this did to my sister. The icing on the cake was when Dad texted Petunia to ask why she did it, and her claim was, because now Lily can babysit without worrying about those horrible creatures. Update. I will be updating as more happens, but seeing as so many were asking for an update, I figure I've left you all in limbo long enough to have something worth posting. 1. Lily is back home. Yay! The doctors had to run a ton of tests, including stress tests, blood tests, ECGs, etc., and told my parents that the stress caused something called broken heart syndrome, for which Lily is on medication now, and was on while in the hospital. She will be monitored every so often to make sure it doesn't happen again. Dad asked if this could have killed her, and the doctor basically said it was very close to a heart attack, which is scary in and of itself too. Petunia has been arrested. Dad filed a report stating everything that she had done, and while this is super satisfying, it gets better. They put a warrant out for her arrest because of the theft, but also because she was apparently on probation for a DUI. And guess what, people? She had a ticket to Italy in her bag, leading the officers to safely assume she was trying to flee the country, also against her probation. Not only that, but my brother was able to go back to the Humane Society and get the login sheet for the day she turned in the cats. She signed Lily's name. So now we're looking at a possible case of fraud, assuming, not actually proven, yet 3, a restraining order has been put into works, with every member of my immediate family being placed on it, so that she cannot contact any of us in the near future. Her mother and stepfather are threatening to sue us for harassment, since apparently it's our fault. She's now being held in custody. 5. All forms of social media that my siblings, parents, or I use have been locked down or downright deleted, because we don't actually trust her or her parents not to try to sneak in using fake accounts. I'll give more details as they come up. Thank you for your time. Update 2. A year later. I won't give details because the case is still ongoing, but Petunia is facing additional charges, as are her parents. 1. They've lost custody of the baby, who has been taken by the father and his parents. 2. We've had to move because of the harassment and attacks from Petunia's flying monkeys. 3. Lily is currently on several medications for anxiety, depression, and PTSD from all of this, and is terrified to leave the house now. She's in therapy and seems to be doing better, but she's struggling. I know it's not the happy ending everyone was wishing for, but it is what it is. We're just taking it a day at a time. Final update. I've been hesitant to submit updates on this story because of fear and the ongoing cases we're still going through. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can because everyone keeps asking for updates. Although Petunia's family has threatened to sue us over multiple things, nothing has happened. I honestly don't think any attorney would take the case, given that they landed Lily in the hospital. There is a massive criminal case against Petunia and her family, due to several instances I won't get into, but now the parents are also looking at jail time. They tried to buy Petunia's way out of jail, and when that didn't happen they tried to bribe us into dismissing the charges. Then we started getting threats. We've since moved in with another family member in an effort to get away from them. The baby they were trying to hoist onto Lily has now been taken in by her father and his parents because neither Petunia nor her parents were seen as fit guardians. Petunia has been sentenced to prison due to having driven on a suspended license, multiple DUIs, child endangerment, theft, assault, extortion, and a whole other list of things I can't remember right now. Not sure if there are or will be other charges made against her in connection to her family, and frankly, I don't care. After this is over, I am done with all of it. Additional information from Update Post. Nothing we can really prove, but multiple times a day, someone would run up to my mother's bedroom windows and bang on them to wake her up or just get the dogs barking. She would have to get out of bed and go check to see who was there every time. And she has problems walking due to knee surgery and couldn't rest after her chemo. We started finding pieces of glass and broken plastic in the yard around where my dogs are usually tied up in the morning along with nails and screws. See Mom, and I bought some citrus trees because we like oranges. We woke up one morning and both trees had been dug up and had their trunks snapped. Pretty sure Roundup or bleach was also poured around the base of another tree because the tree died suddenly along with the grass around it. Multiple calls to animal control because of dangerous animals, which almost got our dogs taken away because one of the dogs had snapped her collar and we had lost her rabies tags. We have an extremely paranoid neighbor whom Petunia knew about because she had spoken with the woman during her vacation with us. Someone made sure to tell the woman that Mum or Lily had stolen her cat. She didn't. It's a feral cat that the neighbor sometimes feeds and is extremely aggressive. Our dogs ended up poisoned with meat chunks that had been thrown into the yard. The dogs survived, but we had to pay a lot of money to keep them that way, and the fact that they tried to poison them was pretty much the final straw. This one honestly made me angrier than the rest. Pets aren't property. They're part of the family. Petunia's actions were straight up dangerous. Stealing Lily's cats and nearly causing her a heart attack is beyond entitled. It's wild how she thought dumping the cats would somehow force Lily to babysit, and the text she sent just shows how clueless and cruel she is. I'm glad the cats were saved, and Petunia's facing serious consequences like prison time. I hope Lily keeps healing, and they all get some peace after all that. Entitled, Sister-in-Law Stole Our Baby Name. Now she regrets it. Hey y'all, long-time lurker and all that. This is a throwaway account. To cut to the chase, my wife and I spent 4 years trying to get pregnant before the wrong side of 35. We are currently 33 respectively now, and are blessed with a wonderful infant son. My wife has a younger half-sister that she has been low contact with for some time. The woman is entitled and toxic, and also her mother's golden child. We've refused to let her or my mother-in-law in the house, since they both blatantly tried to make off with my wife's jewelry box a couple of years ago. The box contained a lot of valuable jewelry inherited from my wife's grandmother. The said jewelry is now in a safety deposit box, as per my suggestion. My wife and I had nearly given up trying to conceive when it suddenly happened, and we were ecstatic. After we found out we were having a boy, we started looking into names. I ended up suggesting the name of my Scottish grandfather, and my wife loved it. So, that's the name we settled on. But we made the mistake of posting about it on social media. Well, no surprise to the stereotype in this mess. My sister-in-law was pregnant too, and was months further along than my wife, also having a boy. She decided to claim my grandfather's name for her own son. And not just the first name, but the middle name too. We called her pissed over what she was doing, and she smugly told us there's nothing we can do about it, which she was sort of right about. There was nothing we could do about it legally, as it's still not a crime to steal planned baby names. We realized that drama was exactly what my sister-in-law wanted, and she thought that by taking the name for herself we'd not be able to use it. I laughed and told her that while what she did was dirty and underhanded, we would keep our chosen name, and she could just deal with it, whether she decides to go through with copying us or not. Well, my sister-in-law's baby daddy called me and said I was an unreasonable dick for still wanting to use the name after she claimed it. I said she claimed nothing, and since we couldn't own the name, neither could they. Before he ended the call, he threatened me by saying I'd be sorry if we didn't change the name. Then he hung up before I could respond. Months later, My sister-in-law had a healthy baby boy and named him my grandfather's name. We did not show up for the birth, both because of the pandemic and because we simply didn't care to be there. My sister-in-law called us, wanting congratulations, but we told her we simply didn't care, and that if she was still insisting we change our baby's name, then she'd be in for some big disappointment, because we were not. She demanded I put my wife on the phone, but it was already on speaker, and my wife spoke up and said she agrees with me entirely. We weren't changing the name. My sister-in-law hung up on us, but soon started sending emails with text walls of names, even suggesting similar ones. I responded that the name was from my grandfather, and that's why we were not changing it. She shut up, and we didn't hear from her again, until after our own son was born 2 months later. We were blessed with our son. He came out perfect, and we named him just as we'd intended. Well, no surprise, my sister-in-law called us a few days after the birth to scream in our ears that we copied her son's name. I pointed out she was the real copycat, since she had no familial ties to the name, and we did, and anyone who looks at our family trees could see that. Then my wife spoke, and said that after the attempted theft of her grandmother's jewelry, she no longer considered her sister-in-law her sister, and would have nothing to do with her nephew either. For months, we were bombarded with messages and emails from my wife's side of the family. Half were on our side after finding out the whole story, the other half were not. And my sister-in-law's baby daddy, true to his word, showed up at my door to make me sorry. I'm not sure what his plan was, but I pretty much towered over him. I'm 6 feet 1 inch, and well built from regular exercise and 3 trips to the gym a week. He, on the other hand, was very skinny, and about 5'6" with a baby face that was badly hidden by a slim beard. I told him my house has cameras, and to get off my property, and never come back. He just yelled a few obscenities at me, and drove off in his beat-up old car. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law called us from a different number to yell at me for making my sister-in-law's baby daddy feel emasculated. I didn't even threaten the man, just told him to leave and not come back, and if he didn't want to feel emasculated, then he shouldn't have come knocking. Then they tried to bring up the issue of the baby name again, and demanded we change our son's name as he's so young, so there's still plenty of time to do it. We held our ground, and told them that they were bonkers to still think they were in the right after they copied our choice of name, just to try to get one over on us. I said my sister-in-law didn't even name her son out of love, but out of spite, just to try to stick it to my wife for no good reason. Then my wife called them both out on the way she was treated growing up, how entitled my sister-in-law and mother-in-law have always been, and how she was glad to leave them far behind. She wants nothing from them, and they won't have anything from us. That left my sister-in-law sobbing, and my mother-in-law called me a royal bastard before hanging up the phone. That was no contact again for a little while, until my sister-in-law called us again some time later to bitterly tell us we'd won. She and her baby daddy got in a huge fight, and he left. He was apparently very sore that my sister-in-law didn't let him even give their son a middle name from his family, and he said he was sick of the bullshit and wanted his son named after him, and not some guy he wasn't even related to. My sister-in-law finally caved, and they got the boy's birth certificate reissued with a completely new name, which cost her around $500, or so she claims. She then demanded we at least compensate her for the name change, plus another $100 for the emotional damage, as now she's going to have to get used to calling her son by a different name. We laughed and said this would have never happened if she hadn't stolen our baby name to begin with, and we didn't owe her anything. Since then, we've been no contact with my sister-in-law and mother-in-law. But my father-in-law, who's a very nice man and divorced from my mother-in-law for obvious reasons, would come by often and loves his grandson. From what he and other relatives told us, the situation between my sister-in-law and her baby daddy was pretty tumultuous. But we don't care. Not our monkeys, not our circus. Update. Why my wife hates her family. Hi y'all. I didn't elaborate about my wife's extended family in my prior post, but to be frank, they are mostly just plain nasty. My wife has a younger half-sister from her mother's second marriage, but from what I'm told, the half-sister's father was very emotionally and physically abusive to my wife, and didn't stick around more than 10 years before flying the coop for reasons I don't know. And because my wife has a different father, she also had different grandparents. My wife's father is a very nice man, and we get along quite well. He divorced my wife's mother early on in their marriage because she's completely toxic. Because of having different parents, there's a 7-year age gap between my wife and her half-sister. Said half-sister ended up being pretty much the baby of the family, and they paid little attention to my wife once my sister-in-law was born. So my wife left to live with her father full-time at some point in her teens, and her mother made a huge stink about it, because without her she no longer got child support money. That woman has also been nothing but crass and snide to me since I met her, I think mainly because I'm not rich, since she bluntly said my wife could do better. I make a decent yearly salary, so I cover my expenses just fine, have my own house, and now a wonderful family. My sister-in-law, as I said in the first post, was the golden child. She was brought up pretty much all the stereotypical ways that you can imagine. Never held accountable, never made to pay her own way on anything, got into all kinds of trouble because she was spoiled rotten. You can think of her as almost having been an embodiment of Veruca Salt, minus the rich, enabling dad. And when she first met me, there was quite an awkward and nasty period before she met her baby daddy. Around the time my wife's sister turned 18, she came visiting us more often, and also started asking to spend the night on weekends. I left that decision up to my wife, and she allowed it because she hoped it would help her and her sister become closer as siblings. But over time I noticed my sister-in-law was hanging around me more, and was dressing in skimpier clothes, and complimenting me a lot. She loved to pinch my arms, and said I was like a Ken doll with muscles. Then one day she actually tried to put her hand on my crotch. That was the last straw, and I told her to leave. She said I didn't know what I was missing before my wife laid into her, and they had a huge fight. My sister-in-law said my wife didn't deserve a man like me before storming out. I guess she found me attractive and thought she could take me away from my wife, or perhaps she just wanted to bait me. I don't know, but I do know that I'd never let something like that happen. I love my wife dearly. She's a positively radiant woman who knows how to make me smile every day. I could never be unfaithful to her. But my sister-in-law didn't give up. She got her cousin in on things and continued to harass us. She heavily flirted with me on multiple occasions whenever we visited my mother-in-law over the next couple of years. She even started getting her cousin involved, and together they actually ganged up on me at a family Halloween party once. They were both dressed in skimpy animal ear cosplay outfits, and actually proposed we go upstairs and have a threesome together. I not only declined, but said they both needed to find some nice single guys their own age. Then I immediately told my wife what happened. She laid into them in front of everyone at the event, but my mother-in-law sided with her golden child and got several other relatives to have her back by claiming I was lying to make trouble, so we just left to avoid more drama. Around the time my sister-in-law's 21st birthday came and went, my mother-in-law called us, furious that we missed the birthday and didn't even send a gift, and apparently my sister-in-law was crying over it. I said I was not comfortable around her because she attempted to seduce me multiple times, and my wife said that it was not my choice but hers whether or not to send a gift, and she didn't want it because of what my sister-in-law did. And my mother-in-law never even so much as scolded her for it. My mother-in-law called it young hormones, and said families shouldn't be so cruel to each other. There was another big fight between my mother-in-law and my wife, and we went low contact with the bulk of her family for a while. Then 2 years ago my wife's grandmother died. She left most of what she had to her son, my father-in-law, but among the things my wife got was all her jewelry. It was all vintage antique jewelry that had been passed down to only women in the family for years, and we had the collection appraised. And it was valued as a whole at several $100,000 because the jewelry was not only vintage, but some of it was around 200 years old. We decided it was best to keep the jewelry locked away in the grandmother's jewelry box, which in itself is also a valuable handmade antique. We figured that was it. But all was not well with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They both showed up at the reading of my wife's grandmother's will, and my mother-in-law was appalled that she got nothing, even more so after finding out my wife got the jewelry. My wife's grandmother had no relationship with my sister-in-law at all, and barely one with my mother-in-law, so my sister-in-law wasn't even mentioned in the will. My mother-in-law threatened to take us to court and contest the will, but never did. Instead, she tried getting nicer to us, and my wife decided to give them one last chance and allowed them into our home again. But as soon as our backs were turned, they tried to make off with the jewelry and all its contents. I'd gone out to pick up some pre-ordered food for dinner, and my wife was distracted by my mother-in-law. My sister-in-law had pretended to use the bathroom and raided my wife's vanity, but I caught her outside by sheer chance when I pulled in the driveway because I wasn't gone as long as they'd hoped. As soon as my headlights flashed her, she dropped the box on the ground before jumping in my mother-in-law's car and locking herself in it. My wife and mother-in-law came running out when they heard me cursing up a storm. My wife saw the smashed jewelry box and freaked out. My mother-in-law realized she and my sister-in-law were caught and had a huge fit over how she believed my wife didn't deserve the jewelry. I got between them, and my mother-in-law hit me a few times and even drew some blood with her sharp nails, but she drove off before we could even get another word in. Once my wife said she was calling the police, we left the evidence untouched on the ground and called the police. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were arrested, but basically got a slap on the wrist with only community service and a fine. The jewelry box was badly damaged. It had a long crack that started up one corner and went all the way to the top, and one of the brass hinges broke. I took it to someone who restores old stuff, and it cost hundreds of dollars to restore it. I went to see my mother-in-law and said she and my sister-in-law were paying for the repairs to the box, or we'd be taking them both to court over it. My mother-in-law told me that wasn't happening until I brought up the fact that we still have documented police evidence that my sister-in-law tried to steal the box. And I could also sue my mother-in-law for the assault she did to me. She wrote me out a check to cover the damages right away and told me to leave. I said that the check better not bounce or have a stock payment put on it, or I'd have zero problem taking her and my sister-in-law to court. The check, thankfully, cleared without issue. We got the jury box back, looking even better than it did before, but we decided the jury wasn't safe in our home anymore, and had it put in a secure safety deposit box, where it has remained to this day. This incident was also what made us decide our home needed cameras, and we've since installed some. Then for my first post, you all know what my sister-in-law did by copying the baby name my wife and I chose, which was also the name of my grandfather. So, you can read how that went. What I didn't say in that post was how much my wife's other relatives, who sided with my sister-in-law, put us through, especially my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law's cousin. My mother-in-law called and texted us repeatedly from a variety of different numbers, demanding we change our son's name both before and after he was born. We never once even humored her, and the cousin harassed us online multiple times. I ended up pointing out the time my sister-in-law and her cousin had cornered and tried to proposition me, and then the cousin blocked me on Facebook when more people started questioning us both about it, since my mother-in-law had kept that situation on heavy damage control back then. Several false rumors were spread about us, and my wife's family ended up divided, and are still divided now because of this. But my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, her cousin, and a few other family members close to them were fully on their side. They believed that it didn't matter where my sister-in-law got her baby's name. Said name was hers now, and we needed to let it go. I fired back that there was nothing to let go. My sister-in-law copied the name we had, and we still used it because it was my grandfather's name. We weren't asking my sister-in-law to change her kid's name. We just weren't going to change our son's name because she copied it, and since we weren't going to associate with them anymore, the two kids would be complete strangers to each other anyway. The false rumors spread about me and my wife were pretty bad for me personally. My sister-in-law tried to claim I was secretly only into younger women, and that I'd leave my wife as soon as she hit 40, and she also tried to say that my son isn't really mine, and claim my wife had an affair because I wasn't getting her pregnant. I never asked her to do it, because I never believed them, but my wife got a DNA test just to prove I am my son's father to them. After that, the rumor mill died down and eventually stopped. After the mess where sister-in-law and her baby daddy nearly broke up and she changed her child's name, we were paid a visit by the cousin. She demanded we pay the money owed to sister-in-law for the name change, and when we refused, she screamed at us that we ruined sister-in-law's relationship. And now, her child's new name will always be a reminder of what we did. I simply told her to leave, as we didn't start this mess. And we didn't even try to end it. We just wanted no part of it. Sister-in-law's cousin flipped me the bird with both hands and said she wished she could do it with her toes too, then left. Before she got in her car, I said that if she ever tried to come back, I'd call the police and file for a restraining order. And that's pretty much it, as we were and still are, completely no contact with mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and the cousin too. Okay, baby name drama will never make sense to me. You don't own a name. But this sister-in-law's behavior is next-level petty. I mean, why are you stealing someone else's grandfather's name for your kid just to spite them? That's just low, especially after a history of allegedly trying to seduce Opie and stealing his wife's jewelry. It shows that she just wanted to win. It's crazy how she and the mother-in-law thought they could bully them into changing their son's name, and the baby daddy's threats were just pathetic. Glad she got burned when her own partner wasn't on board. Good on the couple for doing the right thing by keeping the name and refusing to play along with the game. See what I did there? My ex demanded child support for a kid that is not mine. My mother and sister are on her side. Some years ago, I dated a girl. The relationship was bad because she was very controlling and abusive. It ended badly, and we broke up. I kept going on with my life, and after some years, I got a decent job, enough to meet all my needs and have a comfortable life with some savings. The thing is, a couple of months after getting my job, my ex contacted me and asked me to talk. I believed that she might want to reconnect or something. She showed up with a 5-year-old child, claiming he was my son and demanding child support. I didn't believe her, but the child's age matched the time since we cut contact. I got advice from a lawyer, a friend of mine, to try to resolve this out of court. I offered to take responsibility, pay all the costs, and be an active part of the kid's life, only after doing a DNA test. Everyone was okay with this except for my ex. She acted offended and demanded that I just give her the money she deserved. She used all the excuses. She could even contacted my family to tell them I was trying to avoid taking responsibility for her child when she ran out of excuses, and the DNA test was finally done. Surprise, I'm not the father. She was so mad with the result and cried about the money, saying it was unfair, and she deserved it, but she didn't accomplish anything. Moving on to last week, there was a little party at my parents' house. My brother, a friend, and I were talking, and my brother started to joke about the situation with my ex, my friend, and I started to joke about it too. Some of our comments were a little dark and bad, but we were far away from the rest of the people. Literally, we were on the opposite side of the house and nobody else could hear us. At least that was what we thought. We were laughing like crazies when my sister appeared, very angry, and pushed me against the wall. She had spied on us and heard our conversation and was really mad. She started to yell at us about how horrible we were for mocking a poor woman. A few hours later, after the party ended, she asked me to go to the kitchen with our parents, and she said how awful I was for the previous situation. Apparently, my ex had been in contact with her, and she believed her version, and that was her way to have an intervention. My brother and I were like, "Are you serious?" When she started to say how I forced my ex to be a single mother, and that I have the moral obligation to help her. My dad only said that we maybe were being cruel, making jokes about her, but that I wasn't responsible for that kid. My mom then surprised all of us when she said, "Even if the kid is not yours, you are making more than enough money to support that child. You should have helped her." Since then, I have been receiving texts. My dad and my brother are on my side, saying I'm not responsible for her, but my sister is telling me how horrible I am for ruining their lives. My mom only said, "It's your decision, and I respect it. I'm just very disappointed that you ended up being so selfish. I'm aware that she doesn't deserve my money, and I'm not planning on giving her any, but the constant harassment from my sister. It's been a while." After my last post, I read all the comments and decided to show them to my mother. We had a talk about the situation. Again, she started on my ex's side, but after reading the post and all the comments and opinions, she realized she was wrong. I think the thing that hurt her the most was all the doubts about whether she cheated on my dad, and maybe I wasn't his son, and if that was the reason she was on her side. We had a very long conversation. She told me that she believed my ex because she was always so nice and kind with her, that she decided not to believe me when I told her all of the things she did to me during the relationship, because a good girl like her could never do something like that, so I must be lying. After that, she apologized to me. We are good now. On the other hand, my sister, at first she decided that she wouldn't talk to me until I take responsibility, but after some days I spoke to her. She is totally on my ex's side, even after showing her everything. She said that none of that mattered because a woman's word goes first, and that's all the proof anyone could need. Also, she said even if you are not the biological father, you have a responsibility with her, so you must be man enough to take charge of them and start acting like a real man. She is a lost cause. About my ex, I did some research and found out that shortly after we broke up she started dating another guy, or maybe she was cheating on me with him. I'm not sure. They broke up some weeks later. And she had multiple dates until she found out that she was pregnant. I also found out that she had been trying to find a father for her kid for the last 2 years, and I was the next on the list. It looks like she is desperate now because she was never that aggressive with anyone else before. Now, the reason for this post. Some days ago, my ex and my sister came to my workplace. They made a big sign with my face that said he abandoned his child and irresponsible father to start drama, saying all their bullshit. Their intention was to shame me and use social pressure to force me to take charge. They literally said it to not make the story too long. They were escorted out of the place. I had problems. Even after showing my proof and legal documents that proved they were lying, I was warned that this better never happen again, or I'd be fired. After that, I contacted my friend, the lawyer, and we are now drafting a very long and detailed paper against them, my ex and my sister too. They went too far. Now I'm going against them with everything. Maybe that will scare them enough to leave me alone. Update 2. Approximately 7 weeks later. Hi everyone, and sorry for the lack of news. The last week has been crazy with a lot of stuff, but I think now is a good moment to update you all. First of all, I'm not allowed to talk a lot about the lawsuit. The most I can share with you is that my ex was extremely freaked out when she found out about it. She is now begging to drop it. She offered to take back everything she said and to never bother or even contact me again. She even tried to guilt me, saying that I would be ruining her and her son's life, but honestly, I don't care. I got tired of being the good guy a long time ago. She messed with me, now I'm fighting back. As for my sister, the lawsuit at first only made her worse. Since her attempt to shame me at my job didn't work, she moved it to social media, spreading her bullshit about my abandoning my child or not taking responsibility, and exposing my legal actions like acts of censorship and misogyny. In the end, it will be worse for her. Not only because I can dismiss her defamation easily, but also because there is now more evidence in our favor. Anyway, this is going to be a long road, and we are just beginning. Recently, we had a posada at my parents' home. Every year, we use this as an excuse to make a big family party before Christmas. I had my doubts because I didn't want to be near my sister, but after some relatives assured me that she wouldn't be there, I decided to go. Big mistake. Their mom decided that despite everything that happened, I was taking this too far, so she wanted all of us to meet to solve this problem as a family. I tried to get out of there the moment I realized what she intended, but some relatives tried to stop me, while my mom cried that I needed to stop, that I was tearing apart the family, and needed to learn to forgive and let go. I realized that despite everything, even knowing I was telling the truth, she was still on my sister's side. I got out of there telling her that I'm not attending any family event if she is there, and don't ever think of trying this bullshit again. At this point, almost all my family knows what she did. Some of them think my sister is crazy, some others think she is crazy, but I'm taking it too far. A couple of days ago, Mom invited me to spend Christmas with them. I didn't want to go after what she did, but I decided to give her a chance after she swore that it wouldn't happen again. Not only did she have plans to do it again, but my brother also warned me that this time she intended to lock me in until I forgive my sister and stop the nonsense. I called my mom and told her I knew and that I was done with her, and my sister, I warned her not to talk to me until she realizes that she is supporting the wrong person, and also to apologize. I don't need to say how many times she tried to call me the following hours and all the drama she made when I didn't show up for Christmas. But again, I'm tired of being the good guy. So that's it for the moment. I hope you all had a nice Christmas, and I wish you a happy and drama-free New Year. Update 3. 1 year later. Hi to all who are still here. It's been a while, more than a year, and I think now is a good time to give an update about everything that happened with my life during the last year. Lots of things happened. Lots of things have changed. 1. The lawsuit. To be short, I won. We didn't get to trial. All got resolved in conciliation meetings. My lawyer's strategy was to add all the things we could think of, from the harassment, the defamation, to the attempts to put my job at risk, parental fraud. Everything. The idea was to scare the shit out of them, and if that didn't work, there would be lots of charges against my ex and my sister. My sister kept calling it a bluff, and kept posting all her bullshit on social media, which she regrets now, as every single word she posted against me came back to bite her ass when it was used as proof. My ex took back everything she said, easier for my forgiveness, after seeing that she would lose a lot, so she ended up agreeing to compensate for the damages off court, and left my sister alone in a battle she started. When my sister realized how big things really were, that she was alone now and she would lose, she freaked out, deleted every single post she made, and tried to pretend she never did what she did. But at that point we had all the backups, screenshots, and recordings we needed. On the last conciliation meeting, she broke down crying, begging me to forgive her and not to do this. But she did this to herself. She had multiple chances to stop, but she kept pushing and ended up facing the consequences of her own stupidity. She had to pay me a good amount, plus all the legal costs. My mother helped her to pay, but now she has a considerable debt, as my dad demanded she pay them back over time. For a few months, she resented me for what I did, but we ended up talking and getting back on good terms. Our relationship is damaged but healing. She confessed to me that, at the beginning, she felt she was fighting for a good reason, for a cause she believed in, to defend a poor woman in need. She believed she was doing the right thing, so she was sure she had to win in the end. Those ideas were supported by her friends. As she said, those girls were encouraging her to fight, to face me and make me fulfill my obligations, that she was fighting in the name of other women, and those ideas kept on her mind until things got too real. When she saw there was no way she would win, then all those girls disappeared. My ex left her alone. All the ones who gave her support wished her luck, and went away, so she had no other choice but to surrender. So that's how things ended with them, and for the ones who suspected, no, my sister and my ex weren't in a relationship. I don't know where my ex is, and I don't care. She paid and disappeared, and I hope to never see her again. Some people have told me I went too far with her. Even some called me a monster for ruining a single mother who already was in trouble. And some have said I'm not loyal to my family for taking the issue this far instead of resolving it inside the family. At this point, I don't care anymore. 2. My mother. For the months the conciliation lasted, my mum went on my sister's side multiple times. She tried to convince me to stop from asking me, to just let it go, to trying to guilt me for everything she could think of. She even threatened to disown me, to say she would not see me as a son anymore, to separate me from the family. But in the end she couldn't, and was, and still is, resentful for all those months, and after all was over. I kept asking myself why she does this. Why she just kept treating me like this. So after reading multiple people saying to do this, I finally got to do it. 3. The DNA test. After talking about it with my brother and dad, all agreed it was too rare my mum acted like this, and because of everything my mum said and implied, my dad had more and more doubts, to the point he was sure she did something. After some beers, a very hard talk, some tears, and the promise that, no matter what the results say to me and my brother, he will always be our dad, we took the DNA test. Both of us are his sons. My dad was so relieved, but then very embarrassed for having doubts about his wife's loyalty. He felt very ashamed, so we ended up agreeing to apologize to her for what we did. As I started the talk of the DNA test, I asked to be the first to talk and apologize with her. That night, all of us gathered at my dad's house. We sat around the table, and I started by recognizing all the fights and tension we had over the months, and apologizing for it, because, after all, she is my mother. But her behavior made us all wonder, and have lots of doubts about why she was being like this, so I suggested we all go take a DNA test. Right after saying that, my mum went livid, and half a second later, her face went red. She got up from the chair and threw herself at me.